Hello, welcome to our interview series. This is episode 1. I'm your host, Sophia Stevie Garcia, and I am joined by Vanessa Whyte.
Hi, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Vanessa Whyte is a fourth year TDS student. She's in my class, and today we're here to talk a little bit about these rehearsal halls, tell you a little bit about our facilities, the great things that get done while we're here, and I just wanted to have a candid conversation with you, show everyone the sort of places and opportunities that exist for TDS students specifically because of the facilities that we are offered.
Amazing.
I have a couple questions for you. My first question, warm us up, because the audience likely wants to know, why you of all of the people in our program? So I hit you with this question: how often are you in the halls per day, per week, per month, etc.?
That's a really good question. So I would say that I'm in the halls every day. Typically like a couple hours before a class, and then also like a couple hours in the evening. So I average about like 4 hours a day. Those hours are broken up, but I guess per week that's getting close to 30.
Yeah. And for some context, part of our program, we have designated rehearsal halls that are code protected. They're for TDS students to use only, and they are for use for anything that we need to rehearse in the context of performance, for our acting courses, our literature courses, anything that has performance elements, these halls are for us to use. And Vanessa makes use of them the most out of our year, I would say. My follow-up question is, do you have a favorite rehearsal hall?
Okay, so what's crazy about that is we're actually in my favorite rehearsal hall, RHC. This one's my favorite because it's one of the two that has mirrors, and I do a lot of like movement-based stuff, so I like to be able to see what I look like.
Mirrors not shown, they're right behind these curtains.
But I do prefer this one to the other one, I think, because the Wi-Fi is better in this one, and sometimes we are storing things in the other one with mirrors, so this one I find has the most available space.
Yes. What is your standard rehearsal hall routine? When you come in, what sorts of things are you rehearsing in here? What do you do in a typical rehearsal hall session of yours?
Yeah, so I am doing a lot usually because I'm still singing like outside of school and then also in school classes, and then I also have dance like for class but also for the school's dance team. So I do a lot of stuff for dance, whether that's like stretching, technical training, or running numbers, or choreographing. A lot of that happens in here. I typically start though with something a little less physical to warm myself up. So if I have like a monologue I need to be rehearsing, or lines to work on, or a song to be practicing, I like to do a lot of that stuff first just to kind of get myself in the room. And then once I'm warm and more awake, I move into more like physical things.
Cool. That's interesting, because I find that I'm only ever in the rehearsal halls for like scene work, and sometimes I come in for music or monologues, but I don't know. I think that there's something very important and special about this program such that we have designated spaces to work on these things in, but it's hard to get a spot in the rehearsal halls, so I often find that I do like group work in the rehearsal halls and solo work at home. That's a pro tip. Incoming students, book your rehearsal halls in advance, because there's not that many students, but there's even less rehearsal halls, and they're a hot commodity. Everyone wants them. Like I said, there's 4, and 2 of them have mirrors. Each room is hooked up with Bluetooth and like auxiliary capabilities to hook up sound throughout the speakers. So they're definitely a hot commodity for anything that TDS students are working on.
Especially around finals. So like
Midterm
last day of
and final
rehearsal,
season,
like
crazy.
book those weeks in advance.
Yeah, it gets really serious for us over here. My next question is, which hall do you think is best for what? There's kind of the sense, because there's 4 halls, that each hall, and maybe this is just me, but each hall feels a bit like a different character. I don't do the same things in RHA that I would do in RHC, D, and B. Like, it's kind of different. In your mind, what is each hall good for?
Yeah, I mean, I would say me personally, I do have a crazy bias for C, so I'm just in here all the time because it's also pretty available. Usually A and B are a bit bigger, so sometimes like productions will be rehearsing in there. If I had to choose, I would say, yeah, C and D are usually pretty good for like movement-based stuff because of the mirrors, or if you're like doing a scene, blocking that scene. And then I would say if you're doing anything at least me personally, like if I'm maybe singing or if you're working on a piece that's maybe more like emotionally vulnerable and like a little more extreme vocally and you don't really want to have people hearing, I would say A and B are better for that because they're a bit more soundproof than C and D.
I agree. That's also interesting to me. I feel like Rehearsal Hall A is also like our Deerfield studio theater. More on that in some of our other videos when I give you guys tours of all the spaces. But Rehearsal Hall A has like stage lighting and things like that. So I often find like Rehearsal Hall A is good for rehearsing with like performance energy. Like I'm running this as if it was the real thing. I prefer RHB because that one has like the springy floors. That one to me feels like a rehearsal studio. So it's like I'm devising, I'm building a scene, I'm blocking, maybe I'm doing table work in there, that sort of thing. And although I like A and B more for singing because they're larger so the acoustics are better, I find that when I'm doing that vulnerable work that comes from like learning a song for the first time, or when I'm like running solo work if I am in the halls and I'm not at home, I prefer C and D for those because even though they're less soundproof, they're smaller and I feel like more secure
Intimate.
and cozy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I said, like I feel like each hall is a different character, which is fun. My last question for you is, what is the most interesting thing you've done in a rehearsal hall? And then a follow-up on that is, what is your favorite thing that you have created in this very room?
Okay. Interesting thing. This one that speaks out at me that was kind of recent was last year. I was doing a performance with 2 other classmates, and so the assignment was kind of just to find a scene and do something with it, but we were doing devised theater at the time and we're kind of in that mode. So we found some scenes, like we pulled scenes from Rash Dash's Three Sisters, and like for those who don't know, like it's a take on Chekhov's Three Sisters, but it focuses just on those 3 women and it's very abstract and it's very playful and there's a lot of movement. And so then we were doing that, but we also wanted to incorporate mask. So at the beginning of our rehearsal process, like we all got an RHA, we made these like really cool animal masks that we're going to use for the performance. And then through the process, it was really cool because, you know, we would obviously like be rehearsing during our rehearsal slot, but also just kind of be talking about life and what we were going through. And there was something kind of like beautifully meta about the experience of working on something that just celebrated womanhood and just being a woman and how we connect with each other, and then doing that very thing with my castmates. One of my favorite things I've created, also at the top of my head because I just did it, was my movement piece for my 4th year audition. It was To Stars by Nina Simone, and it was something about like that song and preparing my last audition for the program, and I built the whole thing in RHC, so it was really cool just to watch myself go through the process of making it and rehearsing it and then kind of doing like dress runs of it to finally using it for the audition.
That's cool. I think my favorite thing that I've created in the rehearsal halls is probably our solo projects from last year. I loved my solo project. I built that in RHB because that's my devising room that I've characterized. That's what I did in there. And I think my favorite thing I've done in here is probably just like learning music for my auditions. Because these rooms feel like safer to me, I used to sing a lot before I came into this program, and then I stopped singing. And I think I've rediscovered my love for like musical theater and singing. I think I prefer D to C, but like in these 2 smaller rooms, I think I found a lot of that like reconnection, which was cool. And my reconnection with karate, I figured out my movement piece was gonna be karate in RHD, which is right behind the camera actually, just past that wall. Yeah, that's all the questions I have for you today. Is there anything else that you think is super important or poignant that the incoming students and patrons and Theatre Arundel fans should know about the rehearsal halls? Any tips on best practices for rehearsal hall uses? Any final thoughts, really?
Yeah, I mean, a couple. I think, you know, obviously you would learn this as you come, but I think the maintenance of the rehearsal halls is super important. So I do really appreciate this like general agreement among theater and drama studies students to like restore the room to how you came to it, just so that,
We are really good at that, and it's quite nice.
So we're like respecting the space and knowing that, other people are coming in after us and just making sure that we're cleaning up after ourselves. And then I think just in general, advice to incoming students, I would say, is to really take advantage of it because, after this, I mean, from what I've heard, it's like very difficult to find rehearsal space. So to have something that's like pretty available, close
as long
to
as you
you,
book far enough in advance.
This is true. Like relatively like close to you location-wise and free in a way is like a huge,
included in your tuition.
But we don't have to think about that once you're using it because it is a huge privilege to have, and I think definitely taking advantage of that while you can would be my advice.
And to add to that, like we were talking about earlier, and I was saying, there's a difference in energy when you're rehearsing something in a designated space as opposed to when you are rehearsing something in your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your basement, so your family doesn't hear. And we are very lucky and privileged to have access to these spaces, as you were saying, so you might as well make use of not only the spaces because we're paying for them, but also being able to access that energy of this is a designated space for me to come in and create and make art. I think that that's something really special that we get from this program that I think that some other programs don't have, which is cool. That's all from me. Those are your final thoughts, I suppose. So thank you very much for joining me and joining us. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of our interview series. I have a video coming for you guys to discuss the technical aspects of the theater spaces that we have here on campus. I have a video coming. I'm going to talk to you guys and some current students about the community of TDS Valley and just the program and kind of like not necessarily the social of it all, but the networking and the community vibes. I have some tours of spaces coming, so I have lots of interesting and exciting stuff coming for you guys soon as we roll out our new program. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all soon. Bye.